says here we should work in teams. I tend to think of myself as a one-man wolf pack.
You are about to enter Information Overload, a worldwide transmission with Her Parade's featured Breeder of the Week. Here's your host, Jason Rossi.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Her Parade. I'm your host, Jason Rossi. We are streaming live on herperparade.com. We just launched our forum a few weeks ago. Just go on over there and register and start sharing with us. We also got a e-magazine that we'll be sending out monthly with great information and the latest news, some jokes, and a lot more. So just go on over to herperparade.com and sign up and start sharing your stuff and your breeding. This week's featured breeder of the week is the third host of Python Hunters. Michael Cole from Ballroom South Pythons is here with us. Michael, welcome to Her Parade.
Hey, thanks for asking me on, Jason. How you doing today?
All right, man. It was 60 degrees yesterday, and today it's snowing, so you tell me.
We're doing a lot better than that. No snow down here in Florida.
Nice. So why don't you tell our listeners how you got your start with reptiles?
Wow, well, that goes back a long way. Let's see, I guess I was probably about 4 years old when my dad brought in my first pet snake, and I had that for a while. I actually didn't even remember I was that young, but it's in my baby book that I got from my mom when I got married, so I know it's fact if she wrote it in there. But my dad liked reptiles, and so I kind of got it from him, and I've never looked back. You know, all my life I've been fascinated by them, and I just got lucky enough to be able to turn it into a full-time business back in about 2001. So it's all good stuff.
So what was that first snake?
It was a North American black rat snake. And that is one snake that still holds a near and dear place in my heart. I know most people think black rat snake. What's the big deal with that? But I still like them.
Yeah, I have a creamsicle corn. Is that a half black rat? Am I right?
You know, I'm not really up on the mutations of the corns and milks. Unfortunately, I kind of went right into the void, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time with that stuff, but it probably is.
So in 2001, you launched Ballroom South Pythons. So what did you focus on when you first started out?
Well, in 2001, I actually started a little company called Wild Things Exotics, and I ran that for a while, and I got involved with, at that time, a guy in Georgia, Tim Lane, my brother, and not my real brother, but a really great friend of mine. We started buying snakes together, and we started Ballroom Pythons there. He's in Midway, Georgia, and basically I was buying and selling and cherry picking things down here while we amassed a nice little collection of snakes up there in Georgia. And I guess I went into something else after that for a while and did some chameleon breeding with another person, and then decided to branch out on my own. And when I did that, I just decided to stick with the name that we already had up there in Georgia, which was Ballroom Pythons. So we just switched this to Ballroom Pythons South, and I think Timmy and I still have probably 5 or 6 snakes together up there in Georgia, but down here we really kicked off and just went full bore with our own breeding and our own plans and everything else. And well, Timmy is still a great friend and a great breeder of ball pythons. We've expanded into other areas and did a lot of other different things down here.
So again,
the rest is history.
So again, it is Ballroom Pythons South. My apologies for dyslexiaing that up.
No worries. And the name came from the name came from the. Every time I would call Timmy, we'd talk about, what are you doing and what am I doing, and he was always in the ballroom, which was, of course, the room that we kept the ball pythons in. And so that's just how the name came about. It's Ballroom Pythons.
So what are you guys focusing on there now today?
Well, here on our farm, we're mostly breeding ball pythons. We still have some boas, and we still have some Burmese and retics. We are partners in a farm in Indonesia, and we have a lot of different things there, from green tree pythons to white-lipped pythons, both golden and black. We have Timor pythons, and we have viper boas, and we have blood pythons, and lots of retics over there. A few different Burmese mutations, and then we do a lot of monitor lizards over in Indonesia. So we have almost all of the Indonesian monitor species and a few Filipino too. And that's pretty much our mainstay. I mean, Timmy does all ball pythons up in Georgia, but we dabble in a little bit of everything. We've got frogs, we've got turtles, we've got tortoises, we've got geckos, we've got abronia lizards, we've got Boland's pythons, and these days we're pretty much just, if it's a reptile, I love it, and so we try to get it.
So are you importing from your other facility?
Yes, that's the only imports that I do are from the facility in Indonesia.
Well, that's outstanding. So switching up to python hunters, we've had Greg on and we've had Sean on, and we've got their responses to not being picked up for another season. I'd like to get your take on their decision on not picking up python hunters for another season.
Well, we had some issues with our production company, and our production company had some issues with Nat Geo, and I think that there's a lot to blame there, just between the bad blood between the production company and Nat Geo Wild. TV's a fickle thing. They had a new program director come in Nat Geo Wild, and he changed things up a little bit. I think one of the biggest problems we have is that we just wouldn't fake things, and we weren't going to try to make this one of those crazy, over-the-top, sensationalistic, scary shows. And that's what sells. And whether it's Animal Planet or Nat Geo or Discovery or History, all those channels are really, they used to put on some really great educational shows. Unfortunately, personally, I believe that they've just turned into another money-making thing, and the way that they make money is to sell sensational shows, and I guess they're all just chasing the money these days. So I think our show kind of, with the lack of crap that we put into it, and just the truth and what we actually found and what we saw, didn't always play to what they wanted for sensationalism. And unfortunately, that didn't necessarily bring us to season 3 or season 4, but we had a great time doing the show. Truth be told, season 1 was all we really needed. We needed to educate the world about the Burmese pythons in the Everglades, and we figured that was the best way to do it. I think we really hit a slam dunk with that in season 1. And season 2 and season 3, we just got to play a little bit. So I'm disappointed that they didn't pick it up, but at the same time, I'm really happy that we got the opportunities that we did.
So they wanted fake real TV, not the real deal.
Well, what they really want is they want over the top. They want scary. They want sensational. They want, they want somebody to be scared. They want us to scare the audience. They want, death-defying, and they want to talk up everything. I think we corrected. We had actually edit rights on our show, which is unheard of in the industry. But you have a narrator that obviously doesn't know us at all. He's just reading a script that somebody writes, and every time we caught a water moccasin in the Everglades, they'd come on. The narrator would, "This is one of the most deadly snakes in the world. One bite from one of these snakes could kill the average human." No, they can't. Nobody's ever been killed by a rattlesnake in the state, or by a water moccasin in the state of Florida. They're not that venomous. So the sensationalism that they've tried to put in, and you can watch other TV shows and you can see how it is. You got the call of the wild man jumping in a lake and screaming his bloody head off and telling you how, if he gets bit by this giant snapping turtle, it's going to rip his fingers off. And, that's the sensationalism that they want for TV. I guess it helps draw the audience and keep an audience, but I guess that's just their opinion. And so they're the ones writing the checks for the show. I guess they're the ones that get what they want.
Well, if I was writing the checks, I'd much rather watch you guys catching some amazing animals down South America and releasing them back in the wild, like the one guy said. He's like, nothing greater than catching and releasing back into the wild. That was pretty powerful.
Well, I tell you what, Sean and I did a lot of the planning for where we were going to go in the shows. In season 3, we got to go to Thailand. And I tell you, the one goal I had for Thailand for myself was to be able to catch one of the snakes that I think is the most spectacular snakes on the planet, which is the Burmese python, and actually release it back into the wild because it belonged there. And doing that, even though it was like our last day we were in Thailand, being able to catch that Burmese python, hold it, play with it, and re-release it, and not worry about it going back into an ecosystem where it doesn't belong, that really did my heart good, because we've, as most people know, the ones that are here in Florida, they don't belong, and when we do catch them by law, we are mandated to remove them. And unfortunately, most cases, that means euthanizing them. And, while we don't have to do that ourselves, when you catch one what's going to happen to it in the end. And that's, for a person who has built their business and has such a passion for snakes like I do, it really, it kind of hurts every time you have to do that. But like I said, being able to catch one in Thailand and put it back into the wild, and that really did my heart a lot of good.
Man, that hurts me, and I'm not even the one out there catching them. It's just ridiculous, man. I don't know. So what do you think? Our current climate is with our fight against all this legislation constantly that's coming down against us.
I really don't know. As long as legislation is drafted and is passed by people who don't know the facts and won't listen to the truth, we've got a big, hard fight against us. Unfortunately, people like Senator Nelson, won't even take meetings with us. I had a meeting scheduled with Senator Nelson at his office in Washington, set up with USARK year before last, to go up and talk to him about the Burmese pythons and give him some real information rather than just the rhetoric that he's getting from the media and the sensationalism from other sources and the animal rights activists. And he didn't even take our meeting. He even scheduled the meeting and still didn't even show up. If you have senators and congressmen and you have people in Fish and Wildlife and they're reading or they're listening to the information on the giant constrictor report from the USGS, and they're listening to some of these biologists and things who, if there is no Burmese python problem, then they don't have a job. We're going to have a lot of problems. Unfortunately, I don't think our industry is strong enough and we can't get along well enough yet to gather up $250,000 and hire a really good lawyer and go fight this legislation that's already been passed, because that's what we need to do. If we could get the right lawyer to go and actually get our fight and go against this Lacey Act listing of the Burmese pythons, the African rock pythons, the yellow anacondas, get that into a courtroom to a judge and a jury, or even just a judge who actually has to listen to the facts instead of who's getting paid to, follow up on some $1.7 million report written by somebody who obviously had a tainted opinion, then we could win. But getting that money together as an industry is proved to be very difficult.
You think there would be a lawyer out there that would want to take this on and take on the machine, and do this pro bono?
That pro bono stuff is great. The problem is that a case like this, especially a federal case that you're going to argue in, that high up is going to take a lot of time, and lawyers make good money. So you're talking about probably a 3 to 5 year suit before this actually sees the inside of a courtroom. Most lawyers are looking. I would assume that most lawyers make between $250,000 and $500,000 a year. If this takes 5 years, you're asking a lawyer to give up $2.5 million. That's hard to do. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't offer my services. I'd love to, but when we did season 1 of Python Hunters, all three of us, Sean, Greg, and myself, we actually lost money from our businesses to do it. But we don't make that kind of money like a lawyer does, and it's they've got expenses and living expenses and mortgages and everything else like the rest of us that they've built based on their salaries. So doing something like that pro bono is probably not going to happen. Although it would be nice. If there's any lawyers out there listening that think they got what it takes to take on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, we got the facts, and we can win the case.
Man, that'd be something, yeah. So which was your favorite episode of Python Hunters?
Wow, that one's hard. That's hard. I think filming or watching?
Give me both. Give me your best, the top filming and the top watching. There you go. That make it a little easier.
Well, the top watching episode, I think, had to be the one in Costa Rica where we were catching American crocodiles in a tilapia pond. And I like to watch that because I wanted to see if my apprehension, or what most people would call fear, of large crocodilians, because I didn't at the time know much about crocodiles at all, showed up on film, and boy, did it ever. I looked like I was terrified, and I wasn't actually terrified. I certainly was apprehensive about being in that water with those big crocs. That was my favorite one to watch. I think my favorite one to film had to be Thailand. I know there were 2 episodes there, but the first episode with where we were catching the large water monitors in Lumpini Park, that was definitely a blast. It was a lot of fun. I love monitor lizards almost as much as I love pythons, and boy, that was a fun day.
So I saw a video of a 5-meter, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but the amethystine python. Did I say that right?
Yeah, over in Australia. Mm-hmm. That was a beautiful animal. And not at all like the amethystines from Indonesia. The king horneye, the amethystines from Australia, are very laid back and relaxed and not aggressive. I actually pulled probably a 2-meter one off of a chicken that it had just grabbed and was strangling, and it didn't even try to bite me.
That's amazing.
They are. They're wonderful, wonderful creatures. And not at all what I expected, because, I have a lot of experience with the amethystines in Indonesia, and, every one of those you lay your hands on, and you got yourself a little fight going on.
It looks like a rough-scaled, skinny, reticulated python.
Yeah, kind of. Kind of, they do. Not much of a pattern on most of them, but we just came across a hypomelanistic one in Indonesia, and we've been working with a trapper to bring that in and hopefully get it set up and start trying to reproduce the hypomelanism in the amethystines.
That'll be something, wouldn't it?
It sure will be. It will be. It's a beautiful animal.
So is there any other, morphs, anything like that in that species that you know of, or no?
In amethystines?
Yes.
Well, there's the patternless tannin bars. Those are pretty cool. I have seen a few amethystines with really different and weird patterns and colors. However, there hasn't been a lot of people spending a lot of time breeding them yet, so I don't think we've seen any of that come into the pet trade, but I do believe it's going to happen. It just takes time. You know, as more and more people get involved in snakes and as our regulations limit the species of snakes that we can have that are large, amethystines might be a species of choice for a lot of people down the road.
Just by their temperament alone?
Well, no, their temperament's not going to help us much, but you know, but they are definitely, you know, a larger species that people will, you know, advanced keepers will have a lot of fun with. You know, and if we can get more color combinations and pattern combinations out of the wild, you know, it could be a really great thing and have a lot of great projects down the road.
All right, I was watching another video, and it was showing your yellow monitor. So how do the genetics work on those guys?
The yellow monitor, which one would that be, the Molinas or the, well, we have, on the farm we have the Molinas, which is the Brandis Molinas, or the yellow monitor. It's a ground monitor, sort of like a small water monitor. Those are pretty cool. That's an actual wild animal that, you know, comes like that. It's not a mutation at all. And we have the yellow tree monitor, which is the Varanus, and it just skipped off the top of my head right now. Wow, I can't even think of it.
How big do those guys get?
The Varanus risingeri is the yellow tree monitor. The Molinas, they'll get almost 6 feet. The yellow tree monitors are smaller species. You know, most of the tree monitors only get to be about 3.5 feet total length with tail. And then, of course, there's the yellow-headed monitors and things like the coming eye from the Philippines and sulfurs and some other really cool stuff like that. So we've got all that stuff on the farm, and you know, hopefully we'll be producing a bunch of more of that stuff down the road, so they can be, you know, have a nice group of captive animals for you know, good keepers here in the States.
Could you run over real quick how you keep your monitors?
Well, here we have smaller pens because they're only temporary housing. If they're larger monitors, we have 4 foot by 4 foot by 6 foot high cages outside here in Florida that we have to insulate and everything. But in Indonesia, our cages are usually 6 or 8 feet deep by 6 feet high by 3 or 6 feet wide, and they're outside. They're outside live planted cages with live vines and perches and you know, running water through all the cages. As we're set up on a mountain, so we have a nice gravity feed of water, you know, throughout the facility. And you know, we basically try our best to give them, you know, give them everything the good Lord gave them in the wild, and it seems to do very well for them.
Try to mimic their habitat in the wild, make them.
Yeah. It's still, even with the next to perfect environment that we have over there, since it is their native land, it still takes 2 to 3 years, you know, for an adult monitor to acclimate into captivity and start to do well for you and actually start to produce. And that's, you know, that's over there. So, you know, I tell people all the time when they get into monitors, don't expect to get clutches of eggs your first year having a wild-caught monitor or your second year. It takes a lot of patience, and they're not, well, it's just like every other species, you know. I mean, ball pythons weren't exactly the easiest thing in the world back when they were all coming in as wild-caughts either. So, you know, I tell people the best thing they can do is start with a captive-born baby and raise it up, and that's, you know, going to give them much better opportunities for when it's a breeder down the road.
How do you set up your egg incubation tubs for those guys?
We have a large incubation room here, and we have a large incubation room over there. We incubate in both facilities in vermiculite. Over there, we actually mix the vermiculite with peat moss. And for certain species, we have styrofoam coolers with their own temperature controls, so we can raise the temperature. We keep the basics for the monitors are incubate cooler, but things like reticulated pythons, which incubate warmer, those go into a separate room or a separate container inside the room at a higher level of heat. So, but our incubator room houses everything from turtle eggs to to retic eggs to ball python eggs. Even over there, we're breeding ball pythons. To monitors, you name it, and all goes in the same room, but in different chambers in that room. We have probably 6 different temperature zones we have over there in the incubators over there.
But you mimic them with enclosures here?
Well, our incubators here is just a walk-in incubator also. But most of our incubation here is either done at room temperature inside of one of the snake rooms, or it's actually in the incubator itself, which is set at 89.5. So
now,
go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So when we have other species that are incubate cooler than that, then we find a room inside of one of the other buildings that is at that temperature, and we just incubate them on the shelves or on one of the desks or something in those rooms. Like right now, I have red-tailed green rat snakes incubating in the main ball python room in my ball python breeding colony, because that's the proper temperature for those guys. If I put them in the incubator, they'd cook.
So going back to the medium for the monitors, do they like it more wet or dry or 50-50?
We use, by weight, we use a 50-50 mix. Do a lot more of the monitor eggs over there, and with the peat moss mixed with the vermiculite, it's a little bit heavier, so that tends to be a little bit drier than what we would do it over here.
How long do they take to hatch?
Depends on the species. Some take up to 6 months, and some hatch in 60, 65 days.
6 months, wow.
Yep, it's a long wait sometimes, but since I got a couple of years' experience breeding panther chameleons, I can tell you that 6 months is no time at all compared to some of those panthers at 9 and 10 and 12 months. So it's not so bad. You got 15 croc monitor eggs in the incubator. 6 months is a long time, but when they hatch, it wasn't all that bad.
It makes waiting 2 months for ball python eggs no problem, right?
Yeah, it sure does. It sure does.
But the wife is a big fan of the panther chameleon. Me too. They're definitely a cool species.
Oh, panthers are spectacular. The array of colors they come from, the different localities, and we actually breed those on our farm in Indonesia too, but I don't bring those here to the States because the market for them in Japan is so much higher than here that we sell almost everything we produce to Japan. They are a spectacular species. The way they eat, the way they walk, the way they change colors, the way their personalities, because that is an animal that definitely has a personality. The way they interact with each other, I mean, it's just all amazing.
Now, are they snippy, hissy like the veileds?
They can be. Each one has their own personality. Some of the panthers we have, you can reach in the cage and pick them up and not have a second's issue with them, and other ones will bite you the second you reach your hand in the cage, and even if you pick it up 20 minutes later, they'll still be trying to bite you. So it's just like most other species of lizards. You got to be read each animal and kind of work within the way it's going to let you.
Yeah, I have to read my ball pythons here, and there's really only one I have to watch out for in my collection. She, other times she's balling up, but sometimes she'll just try to take your hand.
Yeah, we've got, I think, 3 or 4 animals that. And it's funny, we actually had one of our original piebalds, his name was Grumpy, because he was just like that. And he's actually changed to be a complete sweetheart. So sometimes they even change in their old age, I guess.
A little bit of breeding calm down.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that calms us down, but it certainly does them.
So speaking of pieds, had Mark Mandick on the show earlier, and he said that you pied-head axanthic. Is that his line?
Yeah, he's got the lightning pieds, which is his own line of axanthic, and they're spectacular. And I've worked with both the Snakekeeper and the VPI lines of axanthic. And Mark has tried to cross his line into the VPI line unsuccessfully, and I've already started my own project in the Snakekeeper line to make axanthic pieds. But I thought, well, maybe we can work the project together to some extent, find out if they're compatible with the Snakekeeper line. So I got a beautiful, beautiful piebald, 100% het for lightning axanthic, and I'm breeding him to some pastel axanthics and some other axanthic stuff that I have for the Snakekeeper line. And if it's compatible, then I'll prove that out, and Mark will know, and I'll actually probably help open up the market a little bit for his line of stuff. And if it's not compatible, then I'll have triple het, piebald, lightning, Snakekeeper axanthics. So either way, I win.
It's win-win when you're stacking genes.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Especially genes that make such spectacular, snakes like those lightning pieds. I mean, we were up there at Mark's place back in the fall and looking at some of his animals and some of the lightning pies that he's held back. Actually, he won Best of Show right up there at the Toronto show. To see the piebald and you see it in that beautiful, the pastel whites and the silvers of the axanthic, it really, really, really is a stellar-looking snake.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite combos. Can't go wrong there. So, what other cool projects are you working with over there?
We've got a few projects that are new for us. We proved out what we call the white powder pastels this year. It's pastel and sprinkle white powdered sugar over it, and that's what you get. We call that our white powder line. We've been working with the window granite gene, which is very different from other granite genes. Something we picked up from Morton Wright back the year before his robbery. And not a whole lot of people work with it. Morton kind of went a different direction to bred it into pastel, and we crossed it into calicos and pastels and super pastels, and some really cool combinations with that this year. So those have been some mainstay projects for us. And then, of course, calico is pretty much what put us on the map. So anything you can possibly imagine with calico, we're trying to stay ahead of the curve and make some new things. And of course, we've always got the old, faithful standbys of stuff everybody loves, the bumblebees and the killer bees and super stripes and all that stuff. So we're working with a lot of different genes. We have a lot of different hopes and ideas of what we want to do down the road, but before our breeding potential and all our breeding ideas are over, I'll be long dead and gone, and my son will be running the business.
So why don't you give us a couple of those future projects you're thinking down the road?
Oh, I don't know. It's just I only go 1 year to 1 year. So when we come up with a breeding, it'll be for this year based on what we have. And then once we've produced the next step, then we'll we figure out at that point what gene we want to go to next. We use the world of ball pythons to see what other people have done, and then we use our imagination to figure out, well, if this makes this orange and this makes this red and that breaks this pattern up like that, then we could put those two things together with this and hopefully come up with that. And I know that sounds complicated, but you have to pretty much just go 1 year at a time to try to figure these projects out, because if you've got your mindset on something that takes 3 or 4 or 5 years to do, by the time you do it, somebody else might have beat you to it, or somebody else might have made something that changes your direction altogether. And all too often that's happened, so I try not to jump too far ahead of myself.
Man, talk about pythons. What a great tool that is. That's our dream right there, just to make it there one day. You be listed on there with the wall of greats. It's just a great resource to have for us.
Well, it is a spectacular resource. We need it not just in words. People have put these great genetic matrix things together over the years in their websites, and Ralph Davis is one of the first people to do it and do it well. But other people have done it and done it well also. But those guys added a whole lot of extra things. The photographs of each snake, basically trying to put out there who produced the first ones and when they were produced, and give us a good insight as to the genes that are involved in each one. I still have a lot of snakes that I've produced that aren't on there. I've just never taken the time to actually get updated. And there's some snakes on there that we were the first producing here at Ballroom Pythons South that somebody else has credit for making the first. For me, it's not all about the credit. It's about this wonderful puzzle and myriad of genetics and artwork that we're doing. And I just like to share it with the world. No matter who got to it first, it's still spectacular, and that doesn't take anything away from the mutation. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, we appreciate you sharing with us. It's nothing better than to see other people's fruits of their labor. It just gives you that motivation to dig in the trenches and carry on.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, as much as a lot of people look at what we've done and what we're doing with ball pythons and they go, oh my gosh, I'll never be there. I can still remember when I was looking at people like Ralph and Pete and Ian and Doug Beard and some of my mentors going, wow, I'll never catch up to those guys. I'll never be able to do. But the thing is, nowadays with the market, prices have come down, so almost every ball python is affordable to somebody. You're not talking about starting a collection that costs $500,000 to start a collection like it used to. You can start a collection with $10,000 or $15,000, and with those couple of snakes, be the first to make the next mutation or the next cross or the next designer mutation, because you can buy into some of those projects now. When I got into this, when those guys, the foundation of the ball python world started, those things didn't even exist. We were working with one gene, and that gene, if you wanted it, it cost you $17,000, $20,000, $25,000. So to see it go, in just 12 short years, basically, it's gone from that to what we see now. It's just spectacular. And I don't like some of the price. I think some of our ball pythons are underpriced. But the truth is, the more the prices come down, the more people can afford it, and the more people can get involved in the hobby, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, you just think more people putting money in, that's going to be more for everyone, right?
Yeah, and truth be told, the more people that have snakes, whether it's ball pythons or lizards or frogs, reptiles in general, the more people in our country that have them, the less likely some idiot congressman or senator like Nelson is likely to come through and try to ban them. because there'll be a lot of people that'll be not so happy about it. I think we should have reptiles in every home across the country.
Strength in numbers.
Exactly.
So what pairing are you excited about this season?
What pairing about this season? Oof. That's kind of hard to say.
You can give me a couple if you like. We won't mind.
Well, we have the window the window granite gene that we're doing. Last year we hit the super pastel calico window granite yellow belly, and that was as far as we've been with that gene. This year we're hoping to make that same snake and add Enchi into it. That could be spectacular. Enchi super stripes, Enchi pastel super stripes are some things that we're working on, hoping to make. Banana puma would be nice if we could hit that this year.
Yeah.
Of course, we're always still working to make our next panda side. Got a really good shot of making that this year. The panda herself is actually up to size, doing very well, and hopefully she's been breeding already. She was actually our first lockup of the year, so hopefully she'll give us a good clutch of eggs, and we'll make some more pandas this year. I don't know. I'm excited about all of it. I love breeding the snakes, and one of my favorite things in the world is to walk into the incubator and watch little heads pop out. I used to joke about it, but it's true. If I find an anole egg in the yard, I'll bring it in and I'll hatch it, as I just love to see the little things pop their heads out of eggs. And I'll take it out in the yard and let it go, but I love to watch things hatch.
Yeah, it's like Christmas and just doesn't get old. I mean, I've only been doing it. This will be our only 5th year, but it just seems, it's still exciting when it's happening, and it is. It's life being brought in, and you created that life, and it's something very special.
It is for sure. And the neat thing about working with as many different genes of ball pythons as we have is typically in a clutch of 6 or 7 eggs, it's a crapshoot what you're going to see. You have no idea if you're going to get a single visual, a normal, or a quad. And, you get everything in between. So it's just like Christmas, when you hit the odds and you get that new one-of-a-kind design mutation that you've been working for, that's great. And, you just never know what it's going to look like. I mean, we've made some things, especially with the window granite gene, that we've actually taken it to a super form or even past, with adding 3 or 4 genes into it, and realized that we didn't like that direction and had to turn around and go take it back out. Because sometimes it just went off in a direction where it got too faded out or something that we weren't looking for, where, we really liked the reds or the oranges that were in it, and we'd like to keep that, but you add the super pastel gene in it and you lose it. So, you just don't ever know what you're going to see, what you're going to do. I love to talk about hatching the first calico pastel. It was never been done before, and we had a 4-egg clutch and cut the first egg, and it was a normal, and the second egg it was a calico, and we were excited. The third egg was a pastel, but it was a really, really awesome-looking pastel, and I thought, well, that's the pastel calico. And then the 4th egg cut, and it was the pastel calico, and boy, was I blown away. I mean, that's, nobody had ever done it before, nobody had ever seen it before, didn't know what to expect. I thought, that really pretty pastel that was in the clutch was going to be it. And, it was 50 times better than that. It's exciting every time in every clutch. And not only that, but, people like me who started the collections with some wild caughts or some captive hatch back in the day, you never know what genes are still sticking around there that we haven't even hit yet. Our white powder pastel project started with a wild African female bred a pastel, raised that up, bred it to a calico, made pastel calicos, and bred one of the pastel calicos back to his mom, and that's where we got the white powder gene. And it's something that didn't show up until this year. We didn't know it was even genetic. But there it showed back up, and now we got it, and now it's, now we look to adding it to every other gene we have out there. So it could be spectacular.
I'm sure it will be. So have the offspring, showed different subtleties from other siblings? I mean, to make you hold these guys back, or did you just stumble across it and now you're going to be holding back?
I absolutely just stumbled across it, so it is completely non-visible in its het form. And fortunately, our record keeping's been pretty good over the years, so we were able to track it back. Now, the original animal that came out of Africa is long gone in somebody else's collection somewhere, and I didn't keep track of where that went. Probably to England, if I had to guess. But like I said, we still have the original pastel female that was produced from the original mom, and she's carrying the gene. Our second pastel calico we ever produced was actually the male that sired this clutch this year. And it's exciting. So we've gone back, we've isolated the gene in some other snakes, or snakes that we think will have it because they should be hets. And then we're going to, move it off into some other projects this next year. So being a recessive, or what we expected is recessive, it'll be a long-term project, but one that's definitely worth doing.
That is outstanding, and it being recessive, that's, a bonus if it is, that's congratulations. I can't wait to see more of it.
Thanks. Well, we did, this year we made a white powder pastel, the super pastel white powder, the white powder pastel calico, and the super pastel white powder calico. So those are the genes that we have so far as visuals, and I can tell you they're all spectacular.
Was white powder in that list?
Yeah, all of those have white powder in them.
Well, we
have white powder pastels, white powder super pastels, white powder super pastel calicos, and white powder pastel calicos.
Now, is the white powder just by itself stunning as it sits, or?
Haven't made it.
So
I have not made the white powder gene by itself without another gene in it yet.
Well, maybe that's what triggers it or something. You'll have to figure it out.
Well, we're going to keep trying.
So do you vend any shows out there?
I go by and visit some of the local shows. I believe there's one in Orlando this weekend coming up I'm going to head out to and check it out. But actual setting up and doing shows, we have only done Daytona the last several years, just because of our schedule with the TV show and everything else. Really not made it possible for me to get out and do the shows. And believe it or not, we actually do better at shows if I send snakes with some friends and have them set up on their table, because people who know me from the TV show and didn't know me before are a little bit apprehensive about coming up and negotiating and talking to us about our snakes. So as we thought that the show would actually help our sales, they actually hindered it quite a bit. And Greg and Sean have said the same thing. So still like to go to the show, still like to see the people, and we just actually it's nicer now that I'm not really setting up at all the shows. It's nice just to walk around and shake hands and talk to people and see what else everybody else has.
So you guys are now that beautiful woman that no one will approach for a date.
Well, that's an interesting analogy, but yeah, I see where you're coming from.
So what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Email is definitely the best way to get a hold of me. ballroom@tampabay.rr.com. I answer my phone probably 200 times a day, so getting me on the phone is hard, and when I answer the phone, I usually stay on the phone until I'm done with the conversation. So I get a lot of missed calls, and if you don't leave a voicemail, then I can't call you back. But if you send me an email, I'll always return the email. That's something I am very, very, very good about. It may take me a day or two because I get probably 150 emails a day that aren't spam. But I always make sure to clear my inbox. So that's the best way to get at me.
Do you have a Facebook account?
I do have a Facebook account. It's Michael Cole. Actually, I have two. The one with me and my orange glasses is the one that's active. Do not follow that very often. I'm probably on there once a week or once every 2 weeks. But I do check it, and if somebody has questions on there, when I get on there, I will do my best to get back with them about that. But definitely email is the best way to get a hold of me.
Outstanding. So is there anything you'd like to add before we end this transmission?
I don't know. I think, I'd just like to tell everybody who's out there, if you're listening, obviously, you like reptiles. Spread the wealth, let your friends and neighbors know about reptiles and, help educate people about these wonderful creatures. And, the world would be a better place if everybody had a reptile.
Just everybody play their part and, inform the person next to you. It'll be a better world.
Absolutely, and do things right, just when you get an animal, make sure you do your research, you know what you're getting into, and you know how to take care of it, and take care of it properly. There's millions of people out there with reptiles that do things right, but the one person that does something wrong is always the one that makes the media, and we don't need that. We just don't need it.
It's always that one bad apple.
Yes, sir.
All right, again, thank you, Michael, for taking time out of your busy schedule for coming on Her Per Parade. We really appreciate you.
Absolutely. You guys have a great one.
All right, remember to check out Michael Cole, Ballroom Pythons South. All right, this is a reminder to check out Her Per Parade. We got a forum over there for you guys. We got the classifieds going. We even have the radio show streaming. So just go on over there. We even have the monthly magazine. We're looking for an art director and somebody to head up the PR. So just go on over to Her Per Parade and shoot us a little message, and we'll hook you up. All right, that's going to do it for this week's show. Her Per Parade, out.
This is Josh Harler from Cape Fear Constrictors. Listen to Her Per Parade Saturday nights at 10.